Twyla, disregard the email I just sent you.
Thank you. I was just going to say we are live right now. So just for any members of the public that are signed and waiting for the regular meeting to commence, we were just having some difficulty with our meeting link. So please stand by while individuals are getting organized, and the regular meeting will start shortly.
Thank you. Just waiting for Councillor Solda. Oh, you're muted.
Correct. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just admitted Councillor Solda.
Oh, there she is. Hmm. I've got 201, Twyla. Is it okay to get going?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Councillor Cabeel's just trying to get in right now, he said.
I'm showing him as present.
Oh, he's here now. Okay, great. Then.
So we do know that Shari is not available right now. So acting mayor is Dan. And
Yep.
Great.
Yeah. Mayor Minion said possibly 2:30 at the earliest. So it is after 2 o'clock. So I guess we'll get started. So I'd like to call the meeting to order and the approval of the agenda, but first recognize that we're on the unceded traditional territories of the Hoopachessa and Sechauchet First Nations. Any late items identified by council? Councillor Solda.
Yes, I would like to have somewhere along the line that we have a discussion about letters that that should be correspondence for responding back and stuff like that. I'd like to just have a discussion on it.
Okay, Twyla.
So perhaps we could have that conversation when council looks at their summary, their correspondence summary.
Okay.
That's fine.
Thank you. Councillor Haggard.
Thank you. I'd like to add to new business that we submit a request that staff organize a committee of the whole meeting at the high school in the fall.
Okay.
Thank you.
So noted, Twyla.
Yes, noted.
Thank you. Are there any late items identified by the corporate officer?
Yes, thank you, Acting Mayor Washington. We have a late item if council would consider adding E2 under unfinished business. And it's a letter from the Chamber of Commerce as it pertains to another submission for the welcome sign.
Thank you. And I guess we should put out the notice of the video recording. We're live streaming this for broadcast on YouTube. Can I get a motion that the agenda be approved as circulated?
Move to adopt.
Second? Councillor Corpio? All in favor? Carried. Adoption of minutes. Special meeting held 9:30 a.m. Regular council meeting held at 2 p.m. on June 14th and special meeting held 5 p.m. on June 17th, 2021.
Motion to adopt.
Seconder?
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Carried. Item C, public input period, an opportunity for the public to submit input on topics relevant to City Council. Maximum of 4 submissions will be accommodated and read out by the Director of Corporate Services. Director of Corporate Services.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. No public submissions have been received.
Item D, delegations. Alberni Valley Drag Racing Association, Vice President Dave Beecroft presenting to council plans for a proposed 2021 drag racing event. Is Dave in the gallery?
Yes, he should be joining us shortly.
Thank you. Oh, there you are.
Here, hang on.
How about now? Can you hear us now?
Yeah, we can hear you and Deb loud and clear.
All right, perfect.
Welcome, Dave.
Oh, thanks. How you doing? Warm enough today?
It's good. It's good. Yes, thank you. So Dave, Vice President, Drag Race Association, what's your plan, my friend?
So a couple things we're looking at doing. We want to run something this year so we can keep our name out there and put back to the community. We're hoping to put on a test and tune on the same weekend. And that'll be a members only. So what we'd like to do is to run just what we have in members and run on the Sunday. So meaning at that, we'd like to close Saturday night, and we're not going to actually race cars. We're just going to run single passes, but we're going to just have it for to get out there, make some noise, and not make it a lot like we've had before. We'll just do it real simple just to get out there. The Saturday night before the Sunday, we would like to do a cruise for charity, and we're just going to do donations and go around and figure all that out. But I mean, just as a game plan, we're looking at doing just a basic test and tune for Sunday. We're going to be running for like 6 hours.
Okay. Crowd?
You tell me. I mean, looking at all the stuff on there, the COVID guideline shows of July 1 that, you know, the fairs can run and different things. And I don't know how you're going to get from many people, but we're going to have to run it with COVID guidelines. Obviously, we're going to, I mean, if we ran it, we could run with 50 cars, just no spectators. If we can run spectators, but we don't want, we'll have to see how that all works. I mean, we're not going to run a full 8th mile. We just want to run 16th mile, say, just to really get our 60-foot mark and have a mark out there and just run single passes and not do the full extent. You know, we're going to run the no posts that we have already all along stamp, and then we'll put some fencing back from that. Obviously, we know there is going to be spectators to come down, but we don't know how that's all going to work. But we have to keep in mind that that could be something we have to deal with and go from there. We're hoping to block the road off Saturday night around 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock, whatever works, and open it again the Sunday night at 8 o'clock. That way we were going to run maybe Saturday, but then it will obstruct more traffic. You know, people are going to get frustrated with us. We want to just do this just for out there. We're looking at is that it's going to be, we can try and put it on TV that people can get on and watch it if you want. If that's our angle we've got to go with, whatever we got to do. We just want to get out there and run again, not lose our date and put it out there. We've got our insurances and ready to go. We've got security, all our safety stuff will be, all the cars will be tacked just like normally. We'll have everything that we normally have. And just go from there.
Perfect. Okay. Any questions from council? Councillor Solda, then Councillor Corbiello.
I think it's a great idea, but I just have a question regarding our roads or streets there. Will there be any burn or anything? You just say ride, so I'm not really.
No, so what the test and tune, normally what we do is we have our solution we put down on the road for we get traction, and then we got a tire draggers and we do all that. We're not going to have any of that. We're not, because that's what, when you still see stuff out there, that's 90% of it is from the tire dragger that we've left marks out of there. So what we plan on doing is we like to close down probably at 4 o'clock and gives us 4 hours of cleanup. We're going to get pressure washers out there and clean it all up and make it. It's not going to be anything like that. We're going to launch and leave from our burnout boxes, not halfway down the road like we did before. So that'll be less thing there. We don't cross any lines. There's like 3 feet of lines we'll cross. So the rest of it, we don't cross any lines anywhere down on there. So it'll be nice. It isn't going to be anything like we were before.
Okay. Councillor Corbiello.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Washington. Yeah, I wish you all the luck in the world, Dave. Are you doing it in August just to keep that date? And the reason I ask is if you were to wait till September 7th, you know, things open up theoretically anyways, almost as normal.
Kind of keeping our date. Yep, that's what we're thinking, right? And it's just, it all works. And then pretty soon the weather gets lousy. I mean, that's usually the best weather weekend. That's why we've always picked that time. And I mean, most we've only been rained out twice, right? So, I mean, you start getting to September, who knows what you get, right? And then, you know, once you do it all, then you do all this time and then you can't run it. So we're really hoping to try and run it that date. I mean, who knows? I mean, if we can't run it, we can't run it. We're going to be prepared to go in half at a point that we, you know, we have to, as it drop dead, you know, we're going to end it. We won't be able to run it, right? So.
And could you help me on July 1st? It says increase capacity with a safety plan. What does that mean in absolute numbers? Do you know?
No, we don't know for sure. So we're gonna look more into that, right? Is what we're going at, and we're gonna see what we have, and we're gonna inquire to see what we actually can do. But it looks like it's a little more open. But I mean, we're going with an idea of 50 cars, keeping that number if we had to, with no spectators.
As of July 1st, it says fairs and festivals with a safety plan. So, you know, you might be okay even after July 1st. That's what
we're looking at. We got to see what's involved in that. We just came to you guys first to make sure we're going to get, you know, we don't want to waste a bunch of your time and our time and not be able to do anything. And then you guys say, no, we don't want to do it, or we're just trying to get it going. We know we got a whole bunch of work to do in a short period of time, but we're not doing all the advertise or anything like that. We're just going out to have a run out of there, and if people watch, it'll all be for free. You know, it's just for the community, really, to have maybe a step out of this COVID.
But like I say, I wish you all the luck in the world.
All right, thank you very much.
Councillor Haggard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's sort of my question as well, Dave. I'm just really concerned. You say, you know, no crowds, but you're going to get people to walk down. That's obviously my concern right now.
Yeah.
And I just don't know if you want hundreds of people down there. I mean, you know, if you go over a little bit over 50, but I just don't want hundreds of people at this time to watch.
Yeah, we're not sure. I mean, we've looked at we've got some fencing if we had to have fencing, but you know, if it's a secure situation, you know, the gate down there, we can control some, but the only way we're not going to control it comes off the hill down from there. So we're really not sure on that, and we really got to look at how it's going to go. We are having security, so we have to have security just for that reason, right? Just so there's no headache. So, but we will have it all fenced and everything like normally. Just we won't. It'll be a bit different fencing though.
Okay.
And there's no. The one thing about it, there's no side-by-side car racing, so it's just single passes. So which is a huge difference for. And no food vendors, none of that stuff. So we're not making it so it's a location everyone can go hang out and thing there. I mean, and it's a 6-hour thing. We're not going to advertise that it's out there. Our goal isn't to really advertise, you know, someone hears about it, but like I said, with all this COVID, I mean, we're just trying to do something, right?
Understand. Thank you. I'll do Councillor Paulson for the first time and then Councillor Solder for the second time.
Just thanks for coming forward, Dave. And, you know, I've been involved in several community events in the past, and I know how important it is to keep an event out in front, because people have short memories, and 2 or 3 years, if you're out of the limelight, people will forget about you. And I think it's important that it just sounds like a demo day to me, and to show that you've still got local interest. And would you be setting up the tree and stuff as well, the starting tree? Or
yep. Our hope is to do that. We're not going to make it a big set all up with our timing station. It'll be a basic run, so we can run. And we're, like I said, we're not running the full 8 mile. You're running half of that, so just to get it as something.
You betcha. And so you're pretty confident you can get in, get down, get dirty, and get out in that time span, eh?
Yeah. So
perfect.
That's kind of why we're doing a members only, because we want to have, you know, at the end of the thing, it's usually 10 people are left and everyone leaves. Well, this is part of the thing. If you're going to race, you're staying around to help clean up there. Everyone's going to have pressure washers. We want to make it so there's no impact for you guys. We want to make it so like we're not doing anything. It's just like the no prep thing, right? You know, we're not doing any of that stuff. There's nothing going down on the road. believe it, there is gonna be some marks, absolutely, but it'd be something that goes away real quick, not like the other stuff that is still there.
So, Mr. Mayor, I gather there would be conditions that we would have, if we have a motion, would have to attach to it with regards to insurance and
Yes, of course.
I think that you probably have a past contract that we could work from with regards to those things, but I'm sure our Director of Corporate Services can pull something together for that.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah,
Twyla, you're looking dubious.
I was just going to add, council will see outlined on your agenda under unfinished business was just providing some history as to previous council direction as it related to the drag racing event. And further to that, we'd be looking at this stage following receipt of Mr. Beecroft's delegation, that council could consider a motion that essentially speaks to in principle supporting this endeavor. Mr. Beecroft then would be asked to provide a letter to council for the July meeting that provided specifics to council as to what the event actually looks like. And it would be at that time that staff would provide council with a motion that would reflect the other requirements to conduct the event, such as liability insurance and road responsibilities and things of that nature.
Perfect. Thank you,
I
Twyla.
think Councillor Poon has a nice little Peugeot she'd like to run on that day.
Or a Citroen.
Citron, yes, it's a
Or a
citron.
Apologies, Councillor Solda, but I'll give Councillor Poon the first tries and I'll come back to your second. Councillor Poon.
Well, I'd be happy to support the event as long as there's a good, solid safety plan to control the crowds. You know, I always love the sound of engines, so yes, very good.
Perfect.
Yeah, that's our plan. We're gonna have to work, that is something we have to work on, but we're just really gonna see what we can get away and how far we can go with it.
Perfect. Okay, thank you. Councillor Solda.
Yeah, I was going to suggest when I saw the unfinished business and I knew the insurance would be packed into there, to add a COVID plan attached to that. So I'm sure staff will look into it because we don't know what COVID's going to.
No, for sure. And we're the same thing. Like we're just kind of seeing, I mean, if there's something we can pull off, that's why we kind of went with just a single card, whatever, members only. And it was just to get our name out there that we're still not dead and we're still working at it. I mean, we're working with Ken Watts right now on different locations. We're not giving up yet. We want to keep racing. So the community wants it. So we'd like to keep it here. So.
Okay. And do the motion, you're going to wait for unfinished business to go forward with that? Thank you.
We'll follow the agenda. Thank you, Councillor Solda. Anything else for Mr. Beecroft?
Nothing for me, but.
Nothing? Okay. Well, thank you, Dave, for taking time out of your day to present this for us. And like Twyla says, item E under unfinished business, we'll deal with it. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you so much for your time, guys. Have a good day. Enjoy the heat.
Yeah. Be cool.
Okay, bye-bye. Thanks.
Okay, our next delegation, Gordon Dick, Riverfront Public Art Proposal. Mr. Dick, there you are.
And Rihanna Miller.
Oh, good afternoon.
Hi.
Good afternoon.
Okay. What do you got planned there, Mr. Dick?
Well, we wanted to, we're wanting to see if there's any support in joining in any up for a public art piece at the Clutha Marina. And this is a piece that would revitalize some of our cultural practices. And it would be an annual event. If this takes shape, that it would be something that everyone would be able to celebrate. Local and people traveling from far. It's an annual celebration for when our salmon return to our rivers here. And
Do you want me to put presentation?
oh yeah,
Okay.
if we have I don't know if anyone has seen any of the presentation, but Rihanna has put together somewhat of a presentation.
Is it all right if I share the screen?
Twyla?
Yes, please, Rihanna.
Should I share the right one?
Yeah.
Okay. It's a little slow. Oh, hold on. There we go. Okay. So I'm just gonna, holy man, it's a little bit slow. I apologize. We're getting there. There we go.
So we did have a brief meeting with Ken Watts, Dale Ross, Mike and Dave from the Port Authority. Pat Deacon was available to stop in as well at this brief meeting just to talk about the concept of this proposed site. So yeah, I'll let you share some of it.
So this is just piecing out the three sections. So there's the art itself, and then there was the platform to support the art, but also to be a community space for people who just enjoy the waterfront. So kind of a dual purpose. And then there was the celebration as well. So that's cultural significance, but also would be a community event that anyone can participate in as a witness and look forward to hopefully each year.
So just to share a little bit more on that in regards to the celebration, is that we would have this art piece that I'd create, and we would install it after the first salmon is returned and erect it with songs and ceremony that, again, everyone is welcome to witness and celebrate and have fun. And then at the end of our salmon return for the run for that season, we lay that to rest and be thankful. Again, we have a celebration and be thankful for what was provided. So this is a practice that, you know, my grandparents shared with me, and it's, you know, it's been somewhat dormant. So this would be great for our community as a whole in the valley, and anyone that's just traveling through, and that would be, you know, something that they can mark on their calendar to come to and participate in annually.
I'll just back up for a second just to remind the dimensions we're talking about. 16 to 20 foot, made of red cedar, carved in a channel style. So in a couple more slides, I'll give you some examples of that. This is just, for those of you who might be unfamiliar, this is more information about Gordon and the gallery and how long he's been carving and doing his work and advancing his art practice. So there's part of the portfolio. And the one on the left and the right are installed here in Port Alberni. And this is some more recent work that's just showing just variation of style. This is an older piece, but it's showing salmon design. You want to talk about this part?
So yeah, so we have some of the estimated costs. We were fortunate enough to get a letter of support in writing from Sashat, from Ken Watts and Council, stating that they will support for the carving material, as well as in raw form, as well as raw material for the platform. So there's the cost of processing the material that would need to look for some sort of support that way, and then so as Rihanna and I were saying here, the platform would be there for year round for, you know, anyone to have a meal, or, you know, watch the bears, or watch you know, any of the salmon, anyone fishing, anyone leaving to go down to the broken group.
And we did have the Port Authority say that they've been considering having a platform at that location as well. So it worked well with their goals for the space.
And it didn't compete with anything that they were potentially looking at in the future. So I'll let you go ahead.
Yeah, so we're hoping to have the artist fees portion covered by a grant from the Canada Council. And obviously it's great we've got the confirmation from Sashot for some raw material, all the raw material. And we have the letter of support from the Port Authority as well, saying that they're excited to be part of the project and would be able to review and look at what they could donate once more details are known, essentially. But I have both of those letters available if anyone wanted to take a look at them, or if I can provide them after the meeting. So our request to the city is essentially, is the site approved for use for a work of public art? And are there any additional contributions that can be made? We do know that the Canada Council for the Arts, when you look at an application that's asking to put art on city-owned land for the community, that is one of the things their panel looks at. They expect contribution in that way. They won't just provide the funding without it. So we do know that from past experience and from speaking with their program officers.
Does anyone have any questions so far?
I just have one. When you say mark your calendar, what kind of timeline? Like,
Well, that's on our salmon return, right?
oh yes, I know, but they're approximately. Sorry.
So, well, what month are we right now? June. So yeah, we would probably be like the first. Like, we could basically say, beginning of June. That we would be like, people would be catching salmon.
Okay.
Long as nature keeps providing for us and we pay attention and listen to that, we'd be fortunate to keep having this celebration kind of beginning of June, maybe end of May,
Depending on Mother Nature.
I'm thinking beginning of June.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Questions from council?
Yes.
Well, first, Councillor Paulson, then Councillor Haggard.
Could you just kind of zero me in on the actual location a bit more, Gordon?
Sure.
It's obviously at Clutha Haven, but whereabouts on the grounds?
So there's a photo that Rihanna's sharing here. I'm not sure if you're able to see it.
Yep.
So we would be over the rocks that are the water break. So past the sidewalk, out towards maybe towards the end of those pillars that are in the water, that would be the end of the dock, end of the platform, and it would go 20 feet north or upriver towards the launch. So that was what Rihanna and I initially looked at as a proposal, and then we shared that with the individuals that were fortunate enough to have that quick little meeting and with the Port Authorities and with Pat and Tim Ply as well, that was at that meeting, and everyone thought it was a great location. And like I said, we mentioned earlier that it didn't compete with anything in the future of any sort of future development for the marina.
And if anything, there used to be a smaller platform was in that location a few years ago.
Yeah, a little bit more towards the launch. There was a platform that was taken down, right? So we're just below that.
Looks like a great spot, you guys.
Councillor Haggard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We just approved, I think it was at the last meeting, perhaps a meeting before, that Community Forest could donate directly to a community project, the amount of $10,000. So I'm not sure what their criteria is. Maybe they're not that far yet, but this is certainly a community project. So I would suggest that maybe you contact the Community Forest Association to see our Community Forest Council to see if this would be a project of interest to them to donate to. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I can't see Counselor Solda. Do you have any questions, Counselor Solda?
I do. You can't see me? Maybe that's a blessing, hey?
Can you now? Yeah.
So my question is, what's the total cost of the project? My computer went off and I'm back. So, and did I miss like a drawing of some sort, or what you're going to be putting up there?
We didn't do a drawing yet. I guess in part because we need to know somewhat of the parameters that if in regards to engineering or the size of the platform, and so those are all we're still kind of fielding those. We still need to. So I know Tim did share the kind of that lookout platform within the roof that was just recently done within the last 2 years, just at the Victoria Quay. I believe he said that one was, I think he was saying about 40,000, but that was a smaller platform that has a roof. I think it was 40 or 50,000 for that one. But I know that one had a somewhat of an existing foundation and deck to start with.
Thank you. And the cost for the so the cost of the project is 40,000 is or more, a lot more, isn't it?
Well, that was before timber prices have gone up as well, right? So I would say it's north of that, but we would have to get. So we have an estimated budget cost of 125,000.
And that's for the platform, the custom glass, because we were envisioning tying in this panel piece conceptually with images on the glass, so etched glass. So the custom glass, donor recognition, the foundation for the art, so like the base to support it, and then the delivery of bringing in the panel for the first year, and the creation of the panel.
And any signs, like for example, in that one earlier was with the location with like, any parking signs, anything that is already existing, we would want to update and have it visual, but complementary to the space.
And one further question, if I may.
Yes.
So the upkeep, the project's ago, it's built, it's constructed, everything's up there. And so who's the upkeep to that? Is that the Port Authority, or would that become the city? Maybe staff or somebody could answer that, or is that just in the weeds right now?
No, what the goal of that, in my opinion, the great goal of that is when we have the celebration, when we're removing the panel or the carving, whatever the created piece is, we'll remove it annually, and it will be housed in Sichat. So it's inside a building. So all through the winter, it's not seeing more wear and tear. And the upkeep, because it's cedar and it's it would be up for a few months each year, exposed to the sun and rain. I guess what I'm saying is the upkeep wouldn't be on the city or the Port Authority. Sichat would be able to take care of that.
Thank you.
Yes, and maintenance to that, might be every 5 years of oiling it, which, yes, so.
Thank
you. Okay.
Any more questions from council? Oh, Councilor Haggard, go ahead.
Thank you. This is already a question, but I just feel like I have more information, and I just feel like I need more information before I can support it, like a conceptual drawing. And, you're still really unsure of what this is going to cost you, get those numbers, in writing exactly what everything's going to cost. And also, what exactly is the ask from the city? So you're just asking for support a general support? Yes, we like the idea, or what exactly are you asking for? So I think I just need more information.
I can provide that information if I stop screen sharing for a second. So I have the 125,000 for the budget, including everything. But if I stop the share, just give me a second to open a different document. We had broken that down. And the conceptual is a bit of a tricky one. It's kind of a chicken and egg thing, because until we know the scope that we can build, what size, that changes how it's drawn as well. So that's why we included the portfolio instead, to give it an overview. And this is what's typical to public art competitions, is they'll show this is what the artist is capable of doing and the range of the artist's abilities. And then usually you'd have a second stage that is more of the detailed conceptual, because that itself takes a lot of time to get something that's beyond just a quick little sketch. Have something that's to scale or has all the details, has all the concept nailed down.
Everyone is still able to hear us, right?
Yep.
Okay, great.
Okay. You can probably see me leaning into just a second here. I think the computer is struggling a little bit. Oh,
Seat.
I can see it, it's just blurry. 1 second. Here we go. So, do you want me to just go ahead?
Yeah, go ahead.
We had, sorry if my face is super close right now. Waterfront platform, custom glass, donor recognition, we had at about 100K. The foundation for the panel, so that's the base and the bracketing system, again, custom, that's 12K. And delivery of the panel, this is just for year one, for the first beginning of the season versus taking down at the end. We had 1,200, and the panel we had at 50. So at that time, the earlier we went to 123,200, but contingency, we put it at 125. Was there another question? I think I might have missed one.
Councillor Paulson.
Gordon Arena, did you guys refer to a grant application earlier, or did I mishear? I mean, if you're looking for a letter of support for grant application, you've received letters from the Port Authority and Shot. Is that what you're looking for today? And
No.
If you're looking for grants, where are you looking?
So we are looking at the Canada Council for the Arts for the artist fee portion. So it doesn't fund everything, but it takes care of the artist fees. And we've applied to them before and been successful. And we're very optimistic with this one. We've spoken to their program officers as well, so they know what this project is about, and have let us know already if it's a no-go, if it doesn't work for them. But they did say that their criteria is that their jury is going to wonder why, what the city is providing, because typically, and I will be explaining this in the application, but typically a larger city doing this would have something like a public art program, and they would just be part of their cultural services section, let's say, that just takes care of these things. In a smaller community, that doesn't work that way. So I'll be including sort of a caveat in the application that explains why we're doing things the way that we are, and what the city is providing, if it's in kind by contribution of the land, if it's whatever it may be. And that application is September 22nd. So we do have time before that goes out there.
Council, are there any more questions? None? Okay.
So
Yes,
was there some of the that answers Councillor Haggard's question from earlier?
It does, but you're still not really clear in your ask for the city, so I'm not really unsure what you're asking. Like, you just want us to donate a little tiny piece of property, or you want cash? If you want cash, how much? Like, I just need a little bit more specifics.
Okay.
Okay. We were looking at both approval for use of the land for this purpose. If we can't use it for artwork, then that's that, isn't it? And then the other, and I guess that the other doesn't need to necessarily happen immediately, but we were looking for before the September 22nd deadline of what could the city contribute beyond the land, basically. I don't know if you can see the screen share right now.
Which would be like landscaping, lighting, foundation for the art piece. Any of those.
Yeah, the pieces that are here.
Support of anything that on the scope of the project needs. Any of that we have in writing would strengthen the success of the grant moving forward.
Okay. Give me if I'm wrong, Director of Corporate Services, but we need some numbers attached to that. We couldn't just say we help with the foundation without knowing how much it's going to cost. That's not the city.
Yeah.
Has to work. The city has to work on hard numbers, not on falling off the back of a truck, so to speak. Sorry.
Absolutely.
Yes, and perhaps if council's comfortable, they could support the project in principle at this point, and then just request that the presenters follow up with additional information and providing those more specifics.
Okay.
And our deputy CAO may also like to comment regarding land. Yeah.
Mr. Smith, welcome.
Thank you, Acting Mr. Mayor. The city does own that land, and we have a lease with the Port Authority for them to operate it. And my understanding is they have a letter of support from the Port Authority. There may be nothing that the city would do that would prohibit a piece of art going up there. We've allowed pieces of art in a variety of different locations, so there's not an impediment from a land use perspective to allowing a piece of art on there in that regard. And then I would agree with the Director of Corporate Services. I think it might be helpful if there were some, and I get that, without knowing exactly what you're doing, it's hard to put some exact prices, but to put a bit of a ballpark price to some of those items, so then City Council could say, okay, we're prepared to always consider, here's a dollar value for this part of the project that the council can consider whether they're prepared to support or not.
Thank you. Councilor Solda.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I would agree with that. I have no problem supporting in principle of the to move forward if they can get grants and stuff like that regarding this project. But I need more information of what we are actually going to do.
So, sorry.
Go ahead.
So the estimated budget that we shared, some of those numbers are from previous projects that I've worked on, and some of them are kind of going from estimated timber costs of what I've talked with one of the coastal bridge construction, which is in the valley here. So these estimated costs, is what I'm hearing, need to be, these are somewhat of in a ballpark in my opinion, but what I'm hearing is they need to be more accurate, I guess.
I'm thinking what you're hearing from council is we need some fine tuning done on exactly your ask. Like if you're going to ask us for the timber and those are 40,000, we need that sort of ask so the council can approve or disapprove, or just we need something a little more concrete before we can, discuss it, debate it, and approve it.
Okay.
Would a letter of support in principle help you right now, or did you want to come back to us with a little more fine detail?
I don't think it's needed right now.
Yeah.
Just re-application.
Yeah. We're okay right now. When we do the application, so we have this estimated budget, but we'll try and nail down as best we can.
If you could fine tune it a little bit, that would be awesome. Thank you.
Okay.
Great. Anything else from council? Councillor Paulson.
Well, just saying, unfortunately, the numbers you gave us for the guesstimates weren't in front of us, and probably that document would help us immensely. And we may even be able to pick and choose one or two items out of that list where we may be able to provide in-kind service, that sort of thing. But without having seen that list that you just talked about, Rena, it's difficult. So possibly that ask should come with that list, and we can go from there.
Okay, well, we could share that that estimated budget right now if you wanted to see it, to give you a reference, or like you said, we'll.
I think if you just forward it to us and we can, acting mayor, possibly bring it forward at a council meeting, certainly long before your deadlines for sure. But we just need to review. We need to review those numbers and have time to digest it.
Absolutely.
Does that work with you, ladies and gentlemen?
Yes.
Okay, so you will fine tune it and get it to Twyla, and she can get it to us, and we can get moving on this.
Okay, great.
Okay, thanks. Anything else, council? Well, thanks very much, Rhea and Gordon. It sounds like a very exciting project, and look forward to making your dream a reality. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, item E, unfinished business, which includes items carried forward from previous council meetings. Twyla, do you want to bring us into this, if you don't mind?
Certainly. So we've just taken the excerpts of previous direction given by council back in 2020. Obviously, the Drag Racing Association was ready to move forward with their event in 2020, but then COVID hit. At the time that council considered their first motion in February, they also moved forward with somewhat authorizing the event to go forward in 2021, subject to performance by the association for their event in 2020. So those are just there for council's information, and in conjunction with Mr. Beecroft's delegation to council today. So as mentioned, staff have suggested to Mr. Beecroft that should council support this event in principle for this year, that Mr. Beecroft fine tune what that event would look like and be more specific as to dates, potential numbers, which, as we know and council's reflected, are always changing right now with the BC restart plan and being reviewed, and we'll go forward from there.
Okay. We have a motion, council. Would someone like to make it? Oops, Councillor Paulson.
I'd like to move that council in principle support the Alberni Valley Drag Racing Association's 2021 Thunder in the Valley Drag Racing event, subject to a letter providing event details to be considered by council at July 12th regular meeting.
I'll second that.
Second by Councillor Solda. Any further? Yes, Councillor Solda.
Just a quick question. Do we need to add, according to, have COVID mentioned in there, COVID rules or anything like that? Because, yeah, just wondering.
I believe our Director of Corporate Services will have that included.
Yes. Once we receive the letter from AVDRA and we place that on council's agenda for the 12th of July, it will specify all the asks or requirements on the part of the city, and we will have the association have to prepare their safety plan. And that's part of the provincial guidelines, not necessarily the city, but it will be a requirement to support their event.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? All in favor? No one opposed. Motion is carried. Item F, staff reports. Number 1, accounts.
Sorry, Acting Mayor.
Yes.
Just we had the addition of the Alberni Valley correspondence, unfinished business. Number
Yes, I'm sorry. I turned my page too soon. Okay, so we had the, you can have that one?
Yeah, you probably wouldn't have it in your, oh, thanks. Our deputy will share that. So before you was a letter that was received after the running of the agenda, and it's from the Alberni Valley Chamber of Commerce, just speaking to a potential second submission for a welcome sign, individual by the name of Dustin Dane. And this is before you for council's consideration. And I will just remind you that just at your last meeting, you had directed staff to move forward with preparing a report that spoke to maintenance costs, landscaping, things of that nature as it pertained to a welcome sign based on Susan Roth's design. So subject to council's thoughts on this one, that could be added to the staff report if council would like us to consider this particular design that's been submitted after the fact.
Council. Councilor Solda.
I like the design, but we can have designs coming for the next 2 weeks. And do we keep going back and re-looking after we've already asked staff to take a look? So that's my question to, like, where do we go with this? Because we've moved forward. So now what?
Director of Corporate Services, you just wanted to add this to the report?
That's an option for council. It's not necessarily staff that would add this, but I understand that council, the letter was written to mayor and council. So the chamber is asking that members of council consider this sign. Given the past direction that council did give with preparing a report that spoke to Susan Roth's submission, that could be an option for council if you wanted staff to consider this sign as well, that we would come back with that information on this sign as well as Susan Roth's sign. But this is council's decision as to whether you want to have this one added to your plate and consider.
Thank you very much. Councilor Haggard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not an expert, but just looking at the sign, I think it's going to cost considerably more than our budget is because we don't have a very large budget. So that's my concern about looking at the sign. It's a beautiful design. There's no question about that. It's just that budget wise, I just don't think it's going to fit into that small budget that we have. Thanks.
Director of Corporate Service, did he mention any costs in that cover letter?
No, he did not.
Thank you. Councilor Poon.
Thank you. I do like the design of this piece, but since we have already moved forward with one, I think we should just stay our course and continue working towards the one that we've chosen. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else from council? Councilor Corbeil.
Yeah, I agree with what Councilor Solda said and what Councilor Poon just said. I mean, potentially we could incorporate something from this sign into the final product. It's not like we've got something built already, but as Councilor Solda said, we could be receiving ideas, for the next 2 years, never mind 2 weeks. So, we've made a decision, but if we could incorporate some of what's in this sign, I think that would be good as well.
So I'm entertaining a motion to say thanks, but no thanks. Is that what I'm hearing?
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Any further comments, questions? All in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. On to item F, staff reports. Item number 1 would be accounts. And that's me. So I move that the certification of the Director of Finance dated June 28, 2021 be received and checks numbering 148652 to 148,717 inclusive, and payments of accounts totaling $468,631.52 be approved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor? Carried.
Is this where you're going to bring up the audit meetings, or are you going to bring it under your report?
I'll do it under my report. Thank you. Item 2, Director of Development Services, Deputy CEO, Architectural Services for Child Care Center, Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this report is being provided for council for their information, for information of the public. And it's the award of a contract for professional services to Waymark Architecture for the final design and coordinating professional for the construction of the Child Care Center at 8th Avenue. As council was aware, the city was very successful and fortunate to receive almost $3 million to build a child care center for 88 child care spaces. Waymark Architecture had assisted the city in making this grant application and therefore was in an excellent position with their team to move forward with this project in a very expeditious way. And therefore council in their in-camera meeting approved a contract for Waymark to proceed with this, and this will allow us to, well, we've already begun the work to potentially, hopefully begin construction on this project this fall with a potential construction or completion date in the fall of 2022, as the city wanted to make all efforts to proceed with this project as soon as possible to provide the much needed childcare spaces for families in Port Alberni. And I'd be pleased to answer any questions of council.
Councillor Haggard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Smith, I don't know if it would be you or Director of Finance, but can one of you just talk on the Director Word policy under the purchasing policy of the city, just so that people are aware of it? Thank you.
I can take a very preliminary crack at it, and then Andrew, our Director of Finance, I'm sure can advocate much stronger, but it is within our purchase policy for the city council to consider directing award professional services under a resolution. And maybe our Director of Finance could add to that as if he thought was better, could explain it in a more detailed way.
Yes, thank you, Acting CAO. So just in regards to the ability for council has to consider certain things associated with the offer to provide service within our professional services policy. So the amount over $50,000 does need to be approved by council. Up to $50,000, the CAO can provide that approval. When it comes to professional services, these are skills that are not met internally within the city, and we have to outsource these. Given the specialty and the association with the project moving forward, Waymark was deemed the preferred supplier for this service, and through a council motion, council can provide that award for that direct award based on circumstances such as that specialty and continuity with the project.
Okay. Any more questions for staff? Okay. This report's being provided just for our information anyway. Nothing else for Mr. Smith. Thank you, Mr. Smith. Okay, item 3, Manager of Operations, award of new tandem axle combination flush hydro excavation truck, RFQ 00221.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will be speaking on behalf of Mr. Wright today. He is not available, so I will take this one for Mr. Wright. So what we have today is 4 requests for decisions as far as recommendations to council on some purchases that we planned in the annual financial plan for 2021, noting that we still have one more vehicle purchase that's outstanding. That's for a truck that will be looking for direct quotes as that bid or quote process was not successful, we did not receive any bids for a utility truck. So with this, just to give an overview before we get into each of the earth replacement purchases for 2021. Each year we go through a process in late fall with the maintenance supervisor and the team of employees at the works yard to review the upcoming purchases, understanding that each year we review these costs as they are coming forward and the planned budget and seek these replacement costs at regular intervals. So in 2019, the amounts that were provided for the earth replacement for these vehicles that are identified in 2021 were vetted back in 2019 for purchase in 2021. Noting that some of these purchases were originally planned to be replaced earlier than what we have in 2021, some occurring or planned to be occurred in 2018 and 2019. So when we look at the consideration, each vehicle and we look at what could be considered to be pushed back or moved forward, depending on maintenance costs that we've incurred, any safety concerns with the vehicle as they age, for recertification and any risk of downtime. So in total, we look at these 4 recommendations that we have for council to consider today, and it's approximately in combined total about $73,000 over our financial plan amount that we had identified. We understand that waiting will likely not decrease the prices that we are seeing today. As I mentioned, we based these with a check-in in 2019. The manager of the fleet looked at these vehicles and in 2019 got some updated prices. We pushed back these vehicles, and obviously with the COVID and tariffs pushing the metal prices upwards, we've seen increases in virtually all vehicles and purchases in this classification. So today we have number 1, the Flusher Hydro truck. This was planned for replacement in 2021, so this is on schedule. The plan is in the 2021 plan with the amount of $406,000 for this purchase. Noting that with the trade-in and the PST, it just comes just slightly over that amount. So pretty well bang on. And there is no need for a financial plan amendment or any really request for any additional funds for this one. So today we have the recommendation for the second lowest bid, but based on the lifetime costs and the experience that we've had with the vehicle from the same manufacturer, it was deemed that the life cycle cost of the one that is recommended today for the from Kendrick Equipment is the lowest cost option for the life cycle of this unit. So this is today here for council's recommendation to purchase the VACOL Freightliner 114 SD truck from Kendrick Equipment.
I did a little research myself and I realized I looked at why they picked the second one, but now I'm understanding because our existing one is a VACOL, so I'm being bold enough to assume that existing parts, familiarity with how that actually works, it all makes sense to me, but I don't know if council has any questions. Councillor Corbeil, then Councillor Solda.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Washington. Yeah, I was going to ask a couple questions. One which very similar to what you're just saying, Dan. Are we trading in the old one? If it is in fact similar, maybe if we're not getting much for it, maybe it makes sense to hold on to it. And I'm curious about what kind of miles or kilometers do these things have when we get rid of them?
Mr. Mayor, I'll attempt to answer the first one. Keeping a vehicle also comes with additional expenses. So when we consider keeping equipment, we have to ensure that it's recertified, it meets certain standards, and we have to insure it and we have to maintain it. You know, there is some benefit of having another piece of equipment kept around as backup and whatnot, but the costs, usually as they age, they start to outweigh the benefit of having this equipment around, from what I understand. So the recommendation was not to keep this. I think we did beat this around a little bit as far as keeping it. And mileage, Councillor Corbeil, I'm not sure the mileage exactly, but I know the vehicle is used very much so in the application daily, from what I understand. So I don't know if the Director of Engineering can provide a little bit more detail on the mileage, but it is a well-used vehicle.
Andrew, do you know what the trade-in value of it is?
Off the top of my head, I can't grab that, but I know that it, as it ages, that vehicle drops down in trade-in value. So what we have today is just the representation of the net expense based on the trade-in value and the PSD added. So,
okay. Deputy CAO, you can add in?
Just one thing to add on mileage is, and the Director of Engineer could provide more detail, but city vehicles typically don't have high mileage, and they usually use hours of operation as a better indicator of when it needs to be replaced and its maintenance history and all those sort of things, because our vehicles don't travel very far, but they're heavily used. So it's, I think if Clinton was here, he would be saying it's the hours of operation and our maintenance and history and the expense costs that often drive when these vehicles are looking to be replaced, not so much just kilometers, where in a personal vehicle, kilometers is often a big driver, but for city vehicles, because they don't travel large distances, it's the hours of operation that really matter in greater circumstance.
Any questions from council? Cindy, or Councillor Soltis, sorry.
Okay. I remember in 2012 when we purchased this and the discussion, it was such a big discussion. Why don't we contract out and why don't we do this? And facts were proven that we use it a lot and we do contract if we have to, when this one's busy and stuff, like other things happen. So I totally support this, because this one I do know is used a lot, and 2012, I think it's had its age. It's done well. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, just to add to that, it's not so much the truck and chassis. I think it's the vacuum attachment in the back. It takes a beating with whatever they're hydro excavating with or cleaning out. I know those compartments take quite a beating, so it is probably due. Anything else from council? Could I get someone to read that motion then, please? Councillor Haggard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move that council award the request for quotations number 002-21 to Kendrick Equipment for the purchase of a new tandem axle combination flusher hydro excavation truck in the amount of $379,835 plus applicable taxes.
Do we have a second here? Councillor Poon. Any more discussion? All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Motion is carried. Item 4, which I will happily turn over to our mayor. Welcome back, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Councillor Washington, for stepping in. Okay, so moving on to item number 4 from the Manager of Operations, we have award of 2 new Freightliner dump trucks.
Madam Mayor, I'm taking these ones on for our Manager of Operations, Mr. Wright, today, so I will present this for council. So just to carry on with the discussion that we had about IRF, we have 2 more vehicles that need replacement. It's the 2005 Volvo dump truck and the 2007 Volvo dump truck. As mentioned earlier, we had a replacement scheduled timeline for these to be undertaken in 2018 and 2019. But based on the lifetime of this asset and review and maintenance, they were deemed to be pushed back until this year, 2021. With this recommendation, there is a request for council to increase the financial plan. Obviously, this specifically does not meet the threshold within our financial plan to need a report to come to council as far as increases in the financial plan, as far as the 10% overage or 25,000. So it's under that threshold. It has a combined overage of 4.5% over the financial plan, but it is $18,451 that is required in the recommendation. And when we provide the year-end amounts that we spent on our projects, you'll see this amount over if we don't amend the financial plan. So we'd like to amend the financial plan to reflect the additional 18,000 coming from the IRF for the purchase of these 2 dump trucks.
Great. Are there questions from council? Councillor Solda and then Councillor Washington.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So just let me get it clear. So the money's coming out of the overage is going to come out of the IRF fund. Is that correct? I just want to just be clear.
Yes, that's correct, Councillor Solda.
Thank you. Councillor Washington.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I look at the quotes and I'm a little surprised with all the truck dealers in Nanaimo and Victoria, the Volvos, the Macs, the Kenworths, that the only P&R Truck Center took the time out to quote on. Is that how I'm reading this? They're the only ones that return quotes?
That is correct, Councillor Washington.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Okay, seeing none, Councillor Washington, would you like to read this motion?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move the council authorize staff to amend the city's 5-year financial plan bylaw 2021-2025 bylaw number 5023 by increasing the city's equipment replacement reserve fund IRF in the amount of $18,452 for the purpose of purchasing 2 new dump trucks.
Thank you. Is there a seconder?
Second.
Seconded by Councillor Poon. Any final comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. And if you want to read the next one.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The council award the request for quotation number 00321 to P&R Truck Center for the purchase of 2 new Freightliner dump trucks with Falcon Equipment dump bodies in the amount of $393,414.72 plus applicable taxes.
And seconded by Councillor Solda. Any other comments or questions? Councillor Washington.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just another thing is with new trucks, you also get warranty. So that takes a little bit of burden out of the shop City Works guys for repairing the older ones.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. Okay, seeing no other comments, all in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, carried. Thank you. Move on to item number 5 from the Manager of Operations or Director of Finance for the award of new refuse truck, dump box RFT 004-21. Andrew.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So today we have the new refuse truck. This was planned for a 2019 replacement and was pushed back, but it's at the point where we need to replace it. The box is starting to age and needs some significant repairs. So it's being deemed as replacement. And the recommendation, even though it doesn't meet the capital project threshold, as mentioned earlier, it is 11% more than planned, but not 25%, $25,000 more than in the financial plan. So with that, we are providing the recommendation to increase the financial plan once again from IRF for the amount that's required, and we only received the 1 bid from Roland's Machinery Limited for this tender.
Okay, Councillor Washington.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I'm seeing an F550. So this is the smaller unit that runs around and does all the bins that are on the street corners and stuff and takes care of parks and recreations garbage.
That is correct, Councillor Washington. This is the vehicle that does the street run around town.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Solda.
Just a quick question. So to repair the other one, are we talking about holes in the back and you can't do some repair them, or they're just too much money?
Councillor Solda, with this, we've reviewed it, and because of the garbage and the makeup of garbage, it's very corrosive to the metal, so it has worn out the box, and it is time to replace it.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Councillor Corbeil, could you read these motions?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We finally got that little microphone. I move that council authorize staff to amend the city's 5-year financial plan bylaw 2021 to 2025 bylaw number 5023 by increasing the city's equipment replacement reserve fund (ERF) in the amount of $15,018 for the purpose of purchasing a new refuse truck.
Second.
By Councillor Washington. Seeing no comments, all in favor? Carried, none opposed. Go on to the next one.
Further, I move that council award the request for tender 004-21 to Roland's Machinery Limited and purchase the new refuse truck complete with dump box in the amount of $139,830 plus applicable taxes.
Second.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Poon. Any comments or questions on this last one? Seeing none, all in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, carried. Thank you. And on to item number 6 from the Manager of Operations, award of new truck with service body and crane. Andrew.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And the final one we have today is the new service truck and body with the crane. And obviously, this one was another purchase that we pushed back from 2019. The recommendation will require a financial plan amendment based on our purchasing policy, and this is over that threshold. It is 43% higher than what we had in the plan, and is more than the $25,000 threshold that we require. So with this crane, the price of metal has doubled for the crane components since we last updated this in 2019. We've seen significant increases in the truck costs, and even as I mentioned earlier, when I opened with the ERF purchases, we've seen no bids come through for a smaller size truck. It is very competitive right now for vehicles. The cost of metal have gone up, and the anticipation that waiting for this one to drop in price is not anticipated. So I think we're realizing some higher costs for our equipment. We need to look at ERF as far as the sustainability moving forward. I know council's had an update in the past, but it's something that we would like to bring forward in light of other ERF impacts. And I'm sure we'll be talking about more as we move forward, but I think it's a good time to have that check-in to see how sustainable the ERF contribution is, and really look at our percent increase year over year, because over the last few years we have seen increases. So with this one, we're asking council to proceed. It's important that we have a functioning crane truck, and the truck that's in question is at the end of its life, and the recommendation for the financial plan amendment is there for council and the purchase to consider. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Haggard, and then Councillor Paulson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have to say our Manager of Operations has been very busy. You touched on it, Andrew, but my question was going to be, how is this going to impact our ERF fund with all these increases? And are we going to have to start increasing our contributions to our ERF fund? So you've touched on it, so I guess that's going to be a conversation for another day.
Yes, Councillor Haggard, great question. I think council needs that check-in to see where we are, what we're realizing, kind of review the past expenditures we've had. We've seen some of our expenditures last year come in at or just under the amount, but realization this year, and from what our management team has heard in the market, it's very competitive to get vehicles, and we just see that increased cost. So it's a good time to have that check-in with council and provide that information as far as the IRF reserve. And I must say that the IRF is a very forward-thinking reserve that was started in 1973 by the city. So well done, City of Port Alberni in the 70s to have that foresight for that asset management component to put away each year.
Thank you. Councillor Paulson.
Just a question. We're replacing a Ford F-350 with a Ford F-450. And I'm just wondering if the difference in cost between an F-350 and a 450 might almost be about $38,000. And the fact that we didn't go with an F-350, is that a supply problem, or did the bid details change? But there is a difference in the cost of an F-350 as opposed to an F-450, and curious why we jumped up to the 450. And I would suspect that $38,000 is probably the difference in cost between a 350 and a 450.
Madam Mayor, I think I need to direct the question to the Director of Engineering for this component of the request.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Also, I can say about the vehicle choice between F-350 and F-450 is we're picking the right vehicle for the right job. So it's not a matter of availability, so we're upsizing to a 450. It's a matter of using the equipment as we have and looking where the industry is going for the right amount of equipment to hold what we're doing with it. We need a F-450 to do the job, is what I'm trying to say.
Thank you. Councillor Washington.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to add to the Director of Engineering, I'm not a Ford person, but I believe the 450 would be a heavier duty version of the 350. And I also believe that the 2005 we're replacing didn't have a service crane on it, and the new one will, which if you look at any service truck on the road today, whether it be from Finning or one of the local dealers, they all have service cranes on them, which is an integral part of the mechanic to be able to do his mobile job. So that could have something to do with the costs. And second question, which was going to be my first question, but with it being a Ford chassis purchase from commercial truck equipment, will any Ford warranty work be honored at our local dealer?
Thank you, Andrew.
Madam Mayor, I don't have the answer for Councillor Washington on that. I apologize for that.
Okay. Okay. Other questions? Seeing none. Councillor Poon, are you able to read these motions?
Yes, I will. I'll move that council authorize staff to amend the city's 5-year financial plan bylaw 2021 to 2025, bylaw number 5023, by increasing the city's equipment replacement reserve fund, IRF, in the amount of $38,970 for the purpose of purchasing a new truck.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Washington. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor? None opposed, carried. Thank you. And you want to carry on to the next one?
Yes, and I'll move that council award the request for tender 006-21 to Commercial Truck Equipment and purchase the new truck with service body and crane in the amount of $120,532 plus applicable taxes.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Washington. Seeing no comments or questions, all in favor? Carried, none opposed. Thank you very much. Move on to item number 7 from the Fire Chief, request for proposals for the 2022 aerial apparatus. Welcome.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Today I'm requesting authorization to release an RFP for an aerial truck, which will be delivered in 2022. Our current aerial is a 1997 75-foot ladder truck, which has served this community well for nearly a quarter century. We were able to receive a one-time extension from Fire Underwriters Survey, which allowed us to keep this aerial as our frontline aerial until 2022. With build time stretching in excess of a year now, it's time to release the RFP. There are two primary changes in the specification for the new aerial over the current aerial. One is that the specification calls for 100-foot versus our current 75-foot. We have found that on some incidents, we have been unable to overcome the setbacks from the roadway with the 75 feet on single-family dwellings. We've also observed that recently completed, under construction, and planned multi-story, multi-family buildings in Port Alberni. Having the ability to reach balconies provides for an opportunity to effect rescues. The second change in the specification is for a platform versus the current ladder truck. In Island Health's local health area profile for 2019, the number of residents over 75 years old is expected to more than double over the next 20 years. In the City of Port Alberni Housing Needs Report, in Port Alberni, 14.3% of households in core housing need were identified as having one person experiencing activity limitations. While there is no data on the total number of Port Alberni residents who have at least one activity limitation, the 2017 Canadian Survey on Disability found that 22.3% of Canadians aged 15 and over had at least one disability that limited their daily activities. The BC Building Code considers those with disabilities when designing multifamily dwellings, and we need to consider disabilities when purchasing an apparatus to rescue those same individuals from those same buildings. Platforms allow for safer working areas for firefighters, allow for a much greater degree of safety for firefighters and residents requiring rescue, are designed to be used as high points for high angle rope rescue and confined space rescues, and are portable waterways that can be connected by hand lines for firefighter use in multi-story buildings or in marinas. The majority of the cost anticipated for the aerial is identified within the city's 5-year financial plan through IRF in the amount of 1.29 million. While we do not know until we receive responses to the RFP, it is anticipated that with recent increases in the prices in metal technology and prices of goods, coupled with an unstable Canadian dollar versus the US dollar, it may push bids higher than what was currently allocated. And I'll welcome any questions that you have.
Thank you. I'll just start by asking, what are we anticipating the bids to come in at? And I know we don't know until we get the bid, but I know we also build an RFP that drives the cost of the truck. So what's our best guess?
Yeah, so I've obviously gone out and explored what other departments have recently purchased aerials for. Grand Cache in Alberta just purchased one for 1.6 million. City of North Vancouver went with a mid-mount, which is likely not the direction that we're going to go, as that tends to inflate the cost more. Theirs was 1.87. Seashelt, 1.6. Campbell Rivers, which is 7 years old, they purchased theirs for just under $1 million. And if they were to repurchase that same truck again, it would cost approximately 1.6. Salmon Arm purchased one fairly recently for $1.2 US. And Port Moody purchased one recently for $1.5 US. So the average seems to be somewhere around 1.6 right now with Canadian dollar. But again, the budget fluctuations, or sorry, the Canadian dollar fluctuations, metal prices, as were just discussed, and then the technology increases as well that we've all experienced through COVID, have just made this a very hard number to pin down, I would say. Yeah, Courtney just budgeted 1.83 million for another mid-mount. And that number was given to me by a vendor. So they're certainly paying attention to these meetings, and probably you'll see the bids come mirroring what they've allocated there.
Thank you. Questions from council? Councillor Haggard, and then Councillor Corbeil and Washington.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm no expert, but I did some research on the markets, and steel, the cost of steel has considerably gone up within the last 12 months, but that's due to factories being down, shut down because of COVID, and there's been a pent-up demand. So they are forecasting that the price of steel will go down in the next 6 months. Do you think it would be reasonable to maybe hold off on this and hope that the cost will go down?
Yeah, if you're not an expert on steel markets, I'm definitely not an expert on steel markets, and so I would be purely speculating on it. What I can say is that, again, we did request and were successful from Fire Underwriter Survey in getting that 5-year extension. The time it takes to build an aerial is about a year. Some manufacturers more, some a little bit less. It is interesting as well that some manufacturers build with steel, others with aluminum, and I couldn't tell you with great accuracy how aluminum presently is performing relative to steel, but the manufacturers with steel are going to have to be competitive with aluminum and vice versa. So that may help our bid here.
Now, if I remember correctly, that we had originally budgeted less than $1 million, and then you came back and asked it to be increased to 1.2 million because of the increases. You did some research, and other communities had just purchased trucks for 1.2. Now you're asking for 1.6. So have things changed that quickly?
I believe that most of those discussions actually happened with a previous fire chief, not myself, when the budgeted amount went in excess of I think it went to 1.25. And then because we held off the additional year, I think we had one more IRF contribution, if I'm remembering correctly, which is what brought us to 1.29. And I guess the short answer is it certainly seems, even in the previous presentation by the Director of Finance, that things have been changing very quickly in terms of costs for raw materials and those costs being downloaded onto the end purchasers.
Thank you. Councillor Corbeil.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The experts do say the price of steel is going to drop, but at the same token, I know you talk a lot about the Canadian dollar. In fact, this is the best the Canadian dollar has been in decades. Was 73 cents a year ago versus 81 cents today. Are you familiar with the truck that Nanaimo bought? It's a 110-foot ladder truck. I believe they bought it a little over a year ago, and it's quite light, and it would probably prevent having to even do work on the fire hall. It's a Pierce. Do you know anything about that, Chief Owens?
I do know about that truck. We've looked at that truck extensively. They bought one. White Rock bought a very similar one. Vernon bought a very similar one. I do have the numbers here for Vernon bought theirs for 1.37. That truck, so we've been doing a lot of work on this. It's not just something that we're kind of shooting from the hip on in terms of what would be suitable for the community. The truck is actually longer in terms of, so the trucks that we're looking at are to have a 100-foot reach. That one has a 110-foot reach. So you would think that I'd be out here asking for that truck. The reason that we're not is that it seems to be right at the very kind of, in our opinion, in the truck committee's opinion, at the knife edge of the engineering limits, and it really doesn't feel as stable when you're on it. And not to discount, I mean, other communities have obviously purchased this and felt like it was the best vehicle for their community. I think when we look at the topography of Port Alberni and the hilly areas that we're on, we just don't feel like the stability that's afforded with that truck, which has a 3-jack system. Every other truck has that we're looking at has either a 4 or a 6 jack system. And we just don't feel that our safety over the longevity of that truck being a 20 to 25 year truck setting up on the angles that are present in Port Alberni, we're just not confident in that truck's abilities for this community.
Another thing I find interesting, and maybe fire chiefs talk about this, but when you look at how many fire trucks, in particular ladder trucks, have been bought in the last year or two, there's lots of them. And it makes you wonder why somebody doesn't get together and say, let's purchase a dozen of those things and get a better price. Now, I appreciate, as you just pointed out, the different topography and stuff might make that difficult, but it seems ridiculous that everybody's doing it individually when it wouldn't take a road scholar to figure out, let's all get together on this. And surely, there's the economy of scale if we were buying 12 trucks at a time. And lastly, I'll just say that I see Parksville bought a ladder truck not too long ago. Again, I think it was end of 2019. They had that in service for 27 years. So, I don't know if we're right up against the wall as far as having to purchase, but I found that interesting too. They got 27 years out of their ladder truck. Thank you.
And aside from the fire underwriter survey, and I'm just pulling up a spreadsheet here, but aside from the fire underwriter survey and that being one reason to push us into another truck, another is that the age of that truck has made parts availability a struggle at times. Just last year, as an example, the truck was unable to pump for 42 days because the pressure governor that was required is no longer made anymore. So we had to get a pressure governor that was custom made for us in order to bring that truck back into service. So with engines, you may have noticed that the 1990 engine that is going to be replaced in short order has been buzzing around town lots lately because we've had other apparatus that are out of service. And we have that ability to have backup engines in a reserve, but presently the aerial is our only one. And to lose that capability for 42 days is something that it certainly makes me uncomfortable.
Just a follow-up question on Councillor Corbeil's. We heard 1.37 for, I think you stated, was the price of seashells. What did Nanaimo pay?
What's interesting is I don't have Nanaimo's listed in the package that came from the individual that would have sold Nanaimo's truck. So unfortunately, I don't have that number at my disposal.
It was 1.56.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I think I had Councillor Washington next, and then Councillor Solda and Poon.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Chief Owens. 1.6, if we went back to the ladder, 75-foot ladder truck without the platform, without the extra 25 feet, can you take an estimate of how much less than 1.6 that would be?
Again, it's a bit of a dangerous game playing, what would a manufacturer sell us a different truck for? I would say that it would probably be in the neighborhood of, in excess of $100,000 less. So, but not, probably not 150, somewhere in that range.
Thank you, Councillor Solda, and then Councillor Poon.
25 years, it's that old already. You just happen to be last on the docket for all these vehicles, and it just, I understand age of a vehicle, and I understand all that, and safety comes first, definitely. It's just, wow, we can't, and I look at the world today and everything like vehicles, people are purchasing vehicles and they're not even made yet, and they're having trouble getting these vehicles, and the prices have gone up. People are just going nuts out there for vehicles. And, if steel is going down, why can't we wait? Or play the devil's advocate, and it could blow up on us, and it could be a lot more. So this is where I'm looking at. They're saying things are going to go back down, but who knows what it is, Madam Mayor. So that's how I'm feeling, you know.
Yeah, and certainly my experience has been with fire truck manufacturers is they seem to be quick on adjusting prices for inflated costs and slow, if non-existent, on decreasing them when times get better. So, and I guess you look at look at Campbell River's truck as an example, where 7 years ago that truck was $600,000, more than 600,000, less than what you would purchase that for now. So it, I guess that is at council's discretion, of course, but it can be a dangerous game.
Yeah, I think the concern is though, you know, so a truck that Campbell River got just a few years ago is $600,000 more now. Is it a really bad time to be purchasing a truck like this? I hear you on, you know, things are quick to adjust up and slower to adjust down. But if we're not in a dire situation for this truck, recognizing that, you know, I know that we need to have this truck, obviously, but I wonder as well, what other resources do we have, you know, within the valley or elsewhere that could help if we ever needed? And it feels like a horrible time to be making a purchase like this with costs where they are. So I will just very much echo Councillor Solda on that. Yeah, I mean, those are very concerning cost increases, especially considering when we started talking about this fire truck purchase, just in the time that, you know, I've been on council 6 years, we felt we couldn't get the truck done within the budgeted purchase at that point, which I believe was 1.15 million, and then went up to 1.25 million. Couldn't get it done in that price range, couldn't get it done in that price range. And then now it's 1.6 million or potentially more. I understand that costs are going up, but just very concerned about how much. Councillor Poon.
Thank you. I totally understand the costs. I don't have huge trouble with that cost, but I just wondered, how is the price determined? Is it when you place the order, or is it when you take delivery?
It's no, you do sign the contract when we award, then that's the price. The only variable there, I suppose, is we can choose to purchase in Canadian dollars, or we can choose to purchase in US dollars. If we do in Canadian dollars, then the companies, all that they do is they purchase a hedge on that, and then they pass those costs along to us. And of course, the security is that if the dollar goes back to 1.35 or sorry, the US to Canadian goes to 1.35, then we're protected. And if the dollar, Canadian dollar takes a run and we achieve parity, then we miss out on that opportunity. So, yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Paulson, did you have comments?
Every time we look at this, we've been looking at it for 6 years, right, Mayor? Madam Mayor? It's a real gut punch. I mean, you look at this and people look at it as, you know, it's a truck and it's a ladder to fight fires with. It's hard to put a dollar value, from my point of view, on public safety and also on staff safety. Unfortunately, with fire departments, they're necessary evils, and they are what you have to have in your toolbox. And I support issuing the RFP. I mean, if we get an RFP and it comes back at 2.2 million, we'll have another look at it, right? But you know what? This is creeping up on us, and sooner or later we're going to have to bite the bullet. If it comes in at $300,000 more, I guess my question is, where do we get that money from? Do we have to say no? And where does that money come from? And you know, I'm somebody who's lost a house to a fire, and fully understand what firefighters go through. And gosh, I was pretty happy they had their equipment with them the day my house was on fire. So it's a real gut punch. I mean, that's a hard dollar figure for decision makers to deal with. And I know that people in the general public will be looking at, what are we doing? But I'm a firm believer that if we don't give our police departments and our fire departments the tools in the toolbox to do their job properly, we're going to pay for it somewhere down the line. And what dollar value do you put on life?
Thank you, Councillor Paulson. I think I echo your thoughts, and I think at the same point we have to be cautious when we're making very significant decisions like this. We just paid about $900,000 for a truck, replacing another truck that I believe the budgeted figure for was just over 600 in that range. It was another significant increase, and we justify those increases every single time, and they happen every time with fire trucks. And I don't think it's the fault of our department by any means. It is the reality of the industry and the challenges. But we justify it every time by speaking to the importance of the service. And I think we all very much believe very strongly in the importance of the service. But we do have to make sure that when we are making these decisions that, if a truck is going to cost us $1.6 million, it is because we absolutely need that $1.6 million truck. So I would like to know, are there changes that could be made to this RFP that would bring it within budget? What would those changes look like? Is there just no way at this time to get any kind of ladder truck within that price range? Because I think council needs to understand, if we were to purchase a truck within budget, what would that look like so that we can evaluate, is that not acceptable for the community and where it's at? And I also just want to recognize, Chief Owens, your comments around, where the community is going. And I think that what we're largely looking at here is an increased need based on a changing community. And I absolutely think when we're purchasing a fire truck like this, we should be purchasing a fire truck that's going to serve us today, but that's going to serve us for the next, hopefully 25 years. And our community is changing. So I understand that piece of it. I just want to be really confident that this is the truck we need before we put out an RFP and then are shocked by the numbers that come back. So I guess my question is there a way to bring this within budget? What would it look like? And what would we be, sacrificing with a truck to work within the budget that we have?
Yeah, and certainly those two, you would start with those 2 points that I started with at the beginning, which is you would need to lose the platform and you would need to reduce the length. And then even at that point, and again, I'm not the truck manufacturer and I'm not responding to the bid. So it's hard to look through that crystal ball and see what they might award it to us for. But and then what I'm left with is thinking that let me be honest that when I look at these numbers, they're not comfortable numbers for me to be presenting either. I mean, I would far rather be sitting here saying I've got the truck, it's exactly what we need, and it's right on budget. With that said, I really don't think that a 75-foot ladder is what is going to serve this community as I look forward to the densification that we're seeing within the community. You don't have to go even a few blocks from the fire hall to see both present and future developments that are exciting, but I also look at them as, how are we going to get to that balcony now and get those people? So I do believe that the 100 feet is required, and I do believe that the platform is required, and unfortunately that coupled with all those other factors we've been talking about is going to drive the price up by some amount, and what that amount is a bit of an unknown right now.
Okay, Thank you very much. Councillor Solda.
It's interesting because I remember the discussions on the ladder and how much we needed a bigger ladder and all that, and the justifications, which, hey, I understand that totally. It's what we have to answer to the public, and all these vehicles today, we're going to be knocked on and said, hey, why are we purchasing so many vehicles? And unfortunately, you came last on the agenda, and this is going to be really hard. And where do I find an answer to that? You know, I understand the aging of our vehicles, and I totally understand all that, but the public's not really going to understand it all. Not all the public. Some will, but some won't. So it's just my thought, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. Councillor Washington.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Chief, I know you're in a hot spot and a tough position right now, but did you also mention that with this 100-foot ladder truck with the platform, you're going to have to modify your fire station as well, sir?
Yeah, so there is money that's allocated presently within the budget for us to make those modifications. And so that money has already been allotted. That was one of the factors and why we're going to entertain bids on a mid-mount, knowing that the mid-mounts, the cost for the truck will come in more, with the hope that perhaps the cost of the truck is, the increased cost of the truck is offset by what we had allocated for the hull modifications. I don't know that it's going to be able to overcome that, but again, we have to wait and see what the bids are in order to make that decision.
Okay. Thank you, Chief Owens and Council, for all of the questions and for taking the time to answer them, Chief. Would somebody like to read the motion? Councillor Paulson.
Tough discussion today, gang. Holy cow. I'd like to move that council approves the issuance of a request for proposal, RFP, for an aerial apparatus to be delivered in 2022.
Second, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Any final comments? Councillor Solda.
So when the RFP comes, it doesn't mean we have to accept it. That's correct, Madam Mayor. It's a good idea to take a look at what it's going to cost and then make a decision from there.
Absolutely. And, you know, I think that we always want to put out an RFP with the intention to move forward. But we certainly can, if it comes in and it's not within, you know, the realm of what we're willing to pay, we certainly can, you know, pause at that point and reevaluate how we're moving forward.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. That in that case, I will support it, but I will wait for the RFP.
Thank you. And I'm going to support the motion as well. Although it is always difficult, you know, with these type of purchases, really appreciate the justification for why this is needed. And I do think that, you know, our community is changing, is growing, I think, significantly right now. And we really need to be planning for those future needs of the community. With that, I will call the question. Councillor Paulson, are you pre-voting or do you have a comment?
No, I just had a quick comment. I mean, the showstopper for me on this would be cost. If it comes in so significantly ridiculous above our capability to pay, and that's the RFP. I'd like to have a look at an RFP, see what we come up with, and then we would have a very difficult decision to make, because it would mean probably we're not going to buy a piece of infrastructure somewhere else to compensate for this in the budget. So there's give and take and those sorts of things, but I stand by the motion for now.
Thank you. Councillor Washington.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Like everybody's saying, we stand behind our fire department. What happens to the old truck? That's the question I'm going to get hit with tomorrow. Does somebody else actually take that into a more rural setting where it doesn't have to be insured, for lack of better words?
Yeah, it's a good question, and something that I suppose we haven't quite got to the end of an answer for yet. And the reason why is that it can exist in a reserve capacity until it turns 30. And so there is a temptation so that if the new aerial is down, that we could bring that one back into service, or if we had a very large event, we could run both at the same event. There's a temptation to do that. It would also improve our fire underwriter survey rating a little bit by having a reserve in place. Of course, the question for me is we don't have enough room at the inn here, so we would have to find another spot to put it. And I'll assure you that I'm not going to ask for a new truck bay here, but we would have to find a partner. I would say to store it for us while we weren't requiring it. So those conversations are in very, very early days. Otherwise, we would probably ship it off at auction, or do what many departments do, which is to donate it to another department in the third world. But we're not quite there yet.
So essentially, trade-in value is what we could get at an auction then.
Yeah, trade-in value on fire apparatus generally is really quite poor. You might have seen the aerial truck that was outside of Nanaimo that was used for advertising for a while, and you can only imagine what they might have purchased for that.
Thank you.
Councillor Corbeil.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Is there an actual association or something, Chief Owens, where if communities are looking to purchase ladder trucks or any type of fire truck in sort of a reasonable amount of time, that they could get together and purchase a half a dozen? Because it just, this one-off stuff just seems ridiculous. And just a comment, if this fire underwriter survey regulated the water bombers, they would have been mothballed in the 60s. And it just, and thankfully we've got a resolution that's working its way through the system to try to do something about that. But it just, again, I'm sure that you're talking to your cohorts often, and it would make so much more sense to purchase a dozen at a time.
Yeah, and I know that there are, well, at least two departments. I spoke earlier about the Courtney having 1.83 for a mid-mount. I don't think that that's necessarily where I want to be promoting back to you guys. And there is another department though that's nearby. I'm not sure where they're at in their process and if it's gone in public yet. And I'm not sure how closely where I received that information initially was from a vendor. Of course, the vendors want you to buy all the products from them. So I will be reaching out to that community again and having that discussion. And perhaps there's an ability to align on engineering there, which does save some of the cost. I will say though, with aerials, which are a bit different than fire engines, is there's not a lot of modifications between them. So the ability to save on engineering costs is limited because most of the trucks are comparable from the same manufacturer. Different manufacturers will build different things, but if you buy from company Y and the person down the street buys from company Y, the trucks will be hard to tell apart aside from the paint.
Thank you.
Councillor Haggard.
Madam Mayor, I don't know if it's possible or not, but in this RFP, is it possible to ask for different deliverables? Like, for example, what would the cost? I mean, you have your fire engine, right? But then you have these add-ons, the platform and the additional ladder length. Is it possible to have an RFP where you break it down into different segments as to what you can have, the main fire engine and then the add-ons? Or am I just totally out to lunch here?
No, not totally out to lunch. I would say that like the when you're talking about ladder length or platform versus non-platform, just a straight stick, those are different trucks. And so you can't ask so much on those. We will have some options on there, such as like we did with the engine, where we were looking at trying to have some idle mitigation technology on board that would switch the vehicle over to battery power when it was sitting idle. Things like that you can option out, and then council can make a decision whether or not the cost is worth aligning with that priority. And certainly we did cut a number of things on the engine in order to bring the price down to the price that we ended up paying for it. So there will be some things that we'll be able to perhaps make a decision on removing, but in terms of the 75-foot ladder and a 100-foot platform, those are two different RFPs.
Okay, well, thank you, everyone. We have a motion on the floor. I'll just read it out for information that council approves the issuance of a request for proposal for an aerial apparatus to be delivered in 2022. So this would be the first step. And then of course it will come back to council at the conclusion of the RFP process for a decision. Okay, on the motion, all in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Thank you. Thanks very much, Chief Owens. And council, I'm going to call a 5-minute recess since we've been going for just over 2 hours already. So everyone, if you'd like to just, council could just turn their cameras and microphones off while we have our recess, that would be great. We'll be back at 4:08. Okay, we'll wait just another moment. Oh, there we go. Just missing Councillor Poon. Great. Okay, we've got everyone. So we will resume our meeting and I'll go to item number 8 from the Director of Corporate Services, the Uptown District Cleanup.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So just a little history before we touch on the work that the city is proposing to take on in the Uptown District. Just a strategic priority of council was to make improvements in the area, particularly between on 3rd Street between Argyle and Mar, and again, Argyle Street between 3rd Avenue and the Harbor Quay. Council had been pursuing a larger initiative for 3rd Avenue, that being the beautification and improvements. That was subject to a grant funding being available, but unfortunately we were not successful. So somewhat shifting gears and focusing on another priority or priorities of council was the public safety building and dealing with some nuisance properties by way of remedial action orders. With both of those initiatives underway, council decided to focus their attention on some smaller scale improvements on the interim. And the last direction of council was that resolution R2140, which spoke to staff bringing forward to council improvements that could be undertaken. So what's outlined in this report are a cleanup to some extent. And this cleanup work does not impact the capital budget that council has set aside for these improvements. I believe it's currently about 142,000 that is there. Those monies are more intended for some planter boxes, replacing of waste receptacles that the Parks Department is currently working on as far as design and costing of those items. So in the interim, a cleanup is planned. 3 phases are proposed and they are outlined in the report. So crews already began doing some weeding initiatives and general cleanup starting June 22nd to the 30th. The big item that has an impact of start time and potential noise and limited pedestrian and vehicle impacts is the work that's taking place July 5th and 6th. And that being more power washing of the sidewalks, benches, and around the garbage bins along the west and east side of 3rd Avenue. Phase 2 consists of crews continuing to wash down sidewalks and curbs from Argyle Street to Mar, from 4th to 2nd Avenue. And then phase 3 takes on that same work and general cleanup between Strathern to Mar Street, 4th Avenue to Harbor Road. It is intended that letters will be hand delivered to the businesses in the area starting tomorrow to let them know of the works that are taking place July 5th, that being the power washing, because it does, and the crews are going to be starting at 4 a.m. to mitigate some of the noise impacts to pedestrian and vehicle traffic flow. So that communication will be taking place as well as on our social media. So with that being said, the works identified in this report is a first step to achieving council's strategic priority of revitalizing the Uptown District, noting that other initiatives will be examined and staff will continue to report back to council to identify what those exactly are.
Thank you very much. I love this initiative just for, cleaning up the community and taking pride in where we live. I recall when the Johnson Road charrette was done, that the streets being clean and tidy were a big focus. And I'm wondering if this is an initiative that we could, once completed in Uptown, that we could mirror on Johnston Road. And is it something that we've done before, or is this the first time we'll be doing, a large cleanup like this? Twyla disappeared.
No, I'm here. Certainly, we will take those comments into consideration. I would probably defer to our CAO or our deputy CAO as far as past practices, if we've done this before. I do believe some of this blitz in the Uptown District is new, and that plays into our new community safety manager coming on board and our new operations manager in the Public Works Department. But Tim's jumped in here, so he may be able to add more.
Thanks, Twyla. Hi, Council. We will certainly bring back the suggestion to our supervisors in parks and works around trying to undertake similar work in the Johnson Road corridor. I suspect they're going to tell us that they put off regular work to focus on the uptown. So there will be some scheduling and considerations there, but we'll take that to them and see if we can succeed first in the uptown and then look for success elsewhere.
Thank you. It's a great initiative, I think, to do, a cleanup blitz like this, and we could almost make it like a once annual thing in each of our business districts. I think it just, I know we haven't done a formal public process like we did for Johnston Road in the uptown, but that was a really consistent theme, was the need for our community to look clean and tidy, the weeds being taken care of, streets being clean, and just that first impression. So I think that's mirrored throughout our entire community, that need, and just, happy to see this coming forward. I'll go to Councillor Poon, and then Solda, and then Paulson and Corbeil.
Thank you. I too would like to see this happen on a regular basis. Once a year would be great. I know the merchants in the area have been asking for some cleanup for quite a while now, and I hope this puts their mind at ease. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Solda.
I think it's a great start. And but what about the buildings that the landlords live in Vancouver and the absentee landlords? I mean, their buildings are getting pretty shabby, and also the graffiti, even some of the homeowners that have empty lots. Like, can we get them to cut their grass, the old brick building, all those kind of things? If we're going to clean up, let's do it and send letters. The Bank of Montreal, yes, they've moved and they have an amazing spot now, but their building is shabby looking on the outside with the sign down and stuff like that. There's a rip canopy, I think, on the brick. Like, can we take a look at that too?
Yeah, I think you raise a great point about engaging with some of the property owners, and Bank of Montreal has done a fantastic job on their Johnson Road location, but you still have responsibility as, property owner in the uptown area. So Tim or Twyla, do you have any comments? I would imagine this piece doesn't include that engagement with property owners, and I know it's something we've continually talked about and is, of course, a piece of our strategic plan. So I know we'll get to it, but if there's any updates.
Mayor Twyla will have specifics around what bylaw services has engaged, if they have, on this. I would suggest that we undertake our work, we get it right, and we learn from our experience. And then maybe after that, if we haven't already, reach out to business owners and say, hey, we did our part, we're calling you to do yours.
Thank you.
Twyla might have more.
And the only thing I might add is that council will hear from our manager of community safety in the near future. July is what we're targeting, to hear how we want to move forward with some of those specifics, as Councillor Solda pointed out, with the vacant property owners and improvements to their buildings and such.
Excellent. Thank you. Councillor Paulson, and then Washington.
I just wanted to give kudos to the crew that has been working out there. I think I mentioned to you, Madam Mayor, that I was somewhat concerned about the way Argyle Street in general is looking, in particular the corner where the Paramount Theatre sits on, and around the stop sign, the grass and weeds had grown to just about waist height. Anyway, our crew worked up and down both sides of Argyle Street, and kudos to the Paramount Theatre, because within 2 days, that 4-foot grass all along the side of their building was gone as well. So it just looks so great. It's like taking a really dirty car and washing it. You can actually see a difference. So thanks to the crew that's out there working in this kind of weather, and keep going.
Yeah, and I'll just echo your thanks to the theater as well. Although I think they're Landmark Cinemas now. Paramount has been a while, but it just echoing Councillor Paulson's comments, it has been obviously a very difficult year for many types of businesses, but the theater has had taken significant hits, and they've also continued to have graffiti tagged on their building, and again they have painted it over it, they've cleaned it up in a really timely manner, And I think they've been hit more than probably any other business in town, and yet they just continue to clean it up and continue to take pride in their space, even when they're closed with public health orders. So they've done a great job, and I'm glad that the weeds have been cleaned up to match their building. Thank you. Councillor Washington and then Corbeil.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The report mentions targeting some nuisance buildings. Can that be revealed at this time, or are we still working with the owners? It just, the public's going to want to know which buildings we want to clean up.
Twyla?
I apologize, my audio was cutting out, Councillor Washington. Could you repeat the question?
Certainly. In the report, we mentioned targeting some nuisance buildings up in the uptown area. Can we reveal at this time which ones that the bylaw is targeting, or is that something that we have to wait and see and be fair to the owners to contact them first before we let Joe public know what's going on?
Yes, I believe we just kept it general and we're just kind of capturing vacant properties right now. Yeah, like, well, to name it as vacant and not be specific. Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Corbeil.
Well, I guess what I was going to say has pretty much been said, but a couple of the activities, knocking down tall grass on vacant lots and cleaning up vegetation and laneways, which is actually the responsibility of the landowner. But maybe at the very least, we should be giving a notice to these people that the bylaw says thou shalt not have grass more than 6 inches. And in the future, we would expect you to maintain it. But let's get it cleaned up, and hopefully it stays cleaned up. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other comments? Okay, seeing none, would somebody like to move receipt of the report?
I'll move receipt.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Solda. Seeing no more comments, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. And on to item number 9 from the Director of Corporate Services, we have the presentation of the city's annual report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So before June 30th of each year, Council must prepare an annual report, make it available for public inspection, consider the report at a council meeting, along with any submissions or questions from the public regarding the report. Council may recall last year was a bit of an anomaly given the COVID-19 pandemic, and ministry had extended the deadline to adopt the annual report. So going back to past practice and what is normal, June 30th is our deadline date. The city did advertise in the newspaper as per legislative requirements, and the advertisement invites submissions from the public, including questions. Just to let council know, there were no submissions or questions received as it related specifically to the annual report. So the report is there for council's endorsement, and perhaps if council has any questions or comments about the report, they can ask those now.
Wonderful. Any questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, I just want to say that the report looks great. I always appreciate the way that it's written in just a very easy way to read for members of the public who may not be super familiar with local government operations, to get just an at a glance understanding of a lot of the operations of the city. So well done to all who were involved in the report this year. And Councillor Haggard, would you like to read the motion?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to move that Council for the City of Port Alberni endorse the annual report for the year ended December 31st, 2020 as presented.
Second, Madam Mayor.
Seconded by Councillor Corbeil. Seeing no comments, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. On to correspondence for action. We have item number 1, an email dated June 15th, 2021 from Dave Kazegi requesting that the Uplands 2 Subdivision Park, currently in development, be named Griffin Park in memory of Griffin Dolling. And just council direction being requested on this. So comments from council. Councillor Haggard.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I also knew Griffin, and he was certainly an outstanding young man. I'm not sure what the city policy is for naming parks, but I would absolutely agree that Griffin Park could be a very good name for this park. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Solda? You're muted, Councillor Solda.
Sorry, I was gonna, I changed computers. I was gonna ask this, what the city policy is, please, because there's a lot of people who have passed away. So I would just like to know more information.
Thank you. Twyla?
Thank you. So the city does not have a policy when it comes to naming parks specifically. Council does have a street naming practice by resolution where a list of names have been identified, but we're silent on the parks aspect.
Okay. Yeah, and I'll kind of echo Councillor Solda's comments. I didn't know Griffin, but I have heard a lot about him, and I think this would be, a wonderful gesture. My only somewhat of a concern is, there have been many people lost from our community, very much deserving of a recognition, like this or like something else. So I wondered, I guess, if there was really significance to this area specifically, or to this park for Griffin. I think the letter didn't really speak to that. I saw just that they were close friends of the developers. Tim?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I believe our policy does provide for developers to be able to petition council for naming streets other than streets on our name list and our pre-approved list. And if we follow that rationale, these developers did approach the city a number of years ago, early in the development, with this request. They were told that it was approved, but it hadn't actually gone through process. So they were surprised recently to find out that they had to come to council with this request. If they'd known that then, they would have come then. So this request, they believed, was approved several years ago and had misleading information at that time.
Okay. Thanks for providing that. So how would council like to proceed? Would somebody like to make a motion? Councillor Paulson.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion. I knew Griffin and his parents, and I think this is a good and noble thing for that area in particular. I think the Dawlings live up there, or used to. Anyway, I would support the motion.
I'll second that.
You have to make a motion.
I would like to support the initiative that the Uplands 2 subdivision park is named Griffin Park in memory of Griffin Dawling.
I'll second that motion.
Seconded by Councillor Haggard. Other comments?
Let's go for it.
Okay, seeing none, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, moving on to item number 2, Uptown Merchants Association. We have a letter dated June 15th, 2021, requesting temporary road closures for the purpose of holding a grassroots market. Are there any questions on this? Okay, everyone's received the letter. Councillor Solda, are you able to read the motion?
I am. I'll move, Madam Mayor, that the council authorize the temporary road closures of 3rd Avenue from Argyle Street to Angus Street as requested by the Uptown Merchants Association for the purpose of holding a market every Wednesday evening from 4:30 p.m. to 8 p.m. starting July 7th, 2021 to August 25th, 2021, subject to the notification of emergency services and BC Transit, consultation with all affected businesses, residents, implementation of the traffic plan, provision of standard liability insurance, COVID-19 safety plan in accordance with the provincial health orders guidelines, capacity attendees to align with the BC Restart Plan guidelines.
Okay. Seconded by Councillor Poon. Any questions on this? Councillor Washington.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. More just a comment. It did occur. It has occurred before, so and I think they were quite organized, and it was quite a good success for them at night. And some of the smaller vendors really appreciate it. So I'm all for it.
Great. Okay, seeing no more comments, all in favor? Carried, none opposed. Thank you. And item number 3, a letter dated June 8th, 2021 from Pink Buffalo Films requesting access to film at 2170 Mallory Drive in relation to the Topaz Cable Landing project currently underway on Plywood Drive, Canal Beach Waterfront Park. And the city's filming on location in Port Alberni policy dated December 13th, 1999 is attached for reference. Are there any questions about this? Helen. Councillor Poon.
I wonder if we have any.
Councillor Poon, you're cutting out.
To update this policy, as it is quite old now, and the industry has changed. Change this policy as the industry has developed since then.
Councillor Poon, I think we missed most of that, but I did hear your comment at the end. I think you're asking about if it was time to update the policy, and I would assume that if we have a policy from 1999, we probably should update it. But was there more to it than that, Councillor Poon? Okay. Sorry, Councillor Poon, I think we're not hearing you quite clearly. Twyla, are you able to speak to the policy? Does it look like it needs an update?
No, I just would like to see this updated because the industry has changed.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and if, Madam Mayor, yes, we actually have updated and prepared a draft policy speaking to this item. So I agree with Councillor Poon. Yes, 1999 things have changed since then. If it helps council in their decision-making process, we do have complete signed copies of Schedule A and B, which are not included in your package, and just additional information that the company is looking at flying a drone to cover the event, but they will be required to follow Transport Canada as far as the regulations pertain to drone flying, including providing the city with a certificate from a valid drone pilot. So we're waiting to receive that in the interim. For the most part, the filming event is on a very small scale, but it will capture the project as outlined in the permit.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Would somebody like to read the motion? Councillor Solda.
Madam Mayor, I move that the council authorize Pink Buffalo Films in accordance with the city's filming on the location policy to film at 2170 Mallory Drive in relation to the Topaz Cable Landing project currently underway at Plywood Drive, Canal Waterfront Park from Friday, July 16th through to Sunday, July 18, 2021.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Paulson. Seeing no comments, all in favor? Okay, thank you. No proclamations, so on to correspondence for information. Twyla.
Thank you again, Madam Mayor. So before you, your summary speaks to 6 items ranging from correspondence from UBCM, which acknowledges council's resolution submissions to ABICC and noting that they've been endorsed. You have letters from District of Squamish, BC Hydro, United Way, and the Sand Group. Also like to bring to council's attention the correspondence that the city had prepared and provided to Alberni Valley Drug and Alcohol Service to support a funding application for initiative that they are looking at obtaining through the Canada's homelessness strategy.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, would somebody like to move receipt of the correspondence?
I'll move receipt of the correspondence.
Thank you, Councillor Poon. Is there a seconder?
Second, Madam Mayor.
Seconded by Councillor Corbeil. I will just ask actually, before we move forward, I see the Sand Group is putting on a fireworks display. My understanding from the letter is that it is to celebrate their partnership with the port. Is that correct, Twyla?
Yes, Madam Mayor, that is correct. And in recognizing San taking over the responsibility for birth 3, to be specific.
Okay. And I just ask because it is on Canada Day. And I think it's worth recognizing, although our council hasn't taken any kind of official position on this, and I don't think we necessarily need to, but I think it's worth recognizing that, many people in our community, as a result of the tragic losses that just continue and have continued over the last few weeks, are really not feeling much like celebrating Canada Day. So I certainly, recognize San's right to celebrate the partnership that they have created. And I think we all would love to celebrate with them in that partnership. I think we do just need to make sure that we do that with sensitivity, given that it is Canada Day and given how many people in our community are feeling right now. Councillor Corbeil.
Just to point out, Madam Mayor, the letter does say, additionally, we recognize that for many people, this is an opportunity to acknowledge the harm that was done to generations of our First Nations people. So, we should be thinking that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So we've got motion to receive the correspondence, moved and seconded. Seeing no other comments, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. And no report from in camera. So we have council reports. Are there any items councillors would like to highlight? Councillor Paulson.
Just very quickly, I know council had this discussion a year or two ago. Councillor Solda, Inspector O'Shea presented at the regional district, and body worn camera program will start rolling out this fall. I'm not sure. Inspector O'Shea was not sure what communities would roll out first, but just thought it would be of interest. And there's a few logistics that still have to be worked out with regards to the cameras and storing the info and stuff. But anyway, yeah, it's going to start rolling out in 2021, and it should take about 18 months to get to every department.
Thanks very much for that. Any other items to highlight? Councillor Corbeil.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I was going to point out that the Alberni Valley Community Forest is planning an annual general meeting in the first week or two of September, probably at the Roland Arts Center, and they're working on a dividend for the city. So we'll hear more in the coming weeks about exactly when that meeting will take place.
Excellent. Okay, and I will just, the only thing for my mayor's report that I'd like to just highlight is that I've spent much of the last week and today watching the coroner's inquest that is going on. As council is aware, and I know some councillors have been watching the live feeds of that coroner's inquest happening in our community into the death of Jocelyn George, who died about 5 years ago now. And I just wanted to make council aware that that as a result of that, the coroner's jury will be putting forward recommendations. Some of those recommendations may involve the city of Port Alberni. And, I've been committing on a regular basis that we are very open to seeing what recommendations come from the coroner's jury and looking forward to seeing them. I think that that the testimony we heard today really highlighted the work that has already been done from the city's perspective in the last 5 years since this tragedy happened. And I think there's much more that needs to be done, but certainly it's always nice to see that, some work is underway and to really look back and reflect on what has already happened. So we'll keep, council will receive that those recommendations once they do come forward, but just wanted to give council a heads up that today was the last day. So now I think the coroner's jury will deliberate and put forward a number of recommendations, and the recommendations are intended in a positive way to try to avoid similar deaths from happening in the future. And any other items for council reports? Okay, seeing none, would somebody like to move receipt? Moved by Councillor Solda, seconded by Councillor Paulson. All in favor? Carried. And new business. I think we have one item of new business. Councillor Haggard.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Throughout the last year and three or 4 months, for many of our segments of our population have been really hard hit because of COVID or the effects of COVID. But I really think our youth have been hit especially hard. They've had extended absences from school. They've, missed seeing their friends. They've missed their extracurricular activities. They've missed sports. And they're going to be the last ones to get vaccinated. And also they're the ones that are going to be really hard hit during their lifetimes to pay for all of this that we're benefiting from right now in our recovery. So I thought it would be a really good opportunity for council to connect with the youth in our community. So I'm suggesting that we perhaps try and schedule a committee of the whole meeting at the high school sometime in the fall. My ideas are to maybe have Mayor do a presentation to talk about our vision for the community. And then the council could ask questions such as, what do you see missing in our community? And how can we retain youth in our community? So really try and give them a voice and what they would like to see. And then maybe have an open question and answer period so they give the youth an opportunity to ask council questions. So yeah, that would be my idea, and I'd like for council and staff to support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Haggard. And I know that we have done council meetings at the high school in the past, but I love the idea of doing a committee of the whole where we can really have more of a two-way conversation about, rather than youth just listening to a council meeting and watching it, have more of a conversation about, what youth needs are in our community. So love it. And when we spoke earlier, I think we were talking about trying to aim for maybe September or October. But of course, recognizing that preparation for that would need to begin sooner rather than later. Would you like to make a formal motion to direct staff to work on?
Yes, I'd like to move that we ask staff to work on planning and preparing a committee of the whole meeting at the high school sometime in the fall. I'm thinking probably October because September will be very busy for the school getting started with the new year.
Great.
Thank you.
I will second that. Any comments? Okay, seeing none, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. And thanks for bringing that forward, Councillor Haggard. We'll move on to, sorry, are there any other items of new business today? Councillor Washington.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Sorry, I'm a little unprepared for this, but I'd like to make a notice of motion that we revisit the frequency to which the audit committee meets. My two colleagues in separate occasions have mentioned that the new rules, it's too long in between, so they would like to go back to the old format, just so we're meeting a little more frequent and staying on top of things rather than things happening months ago. We're talking things happening weeks ago. So if we could get Andrew to revisit that for us, we would really appreciate it.
That's great. So if you make it as a notice of motion, then it will come forward as an item of business on our next council agenda. Just remind me right now, I think our new terms of reference were to meet quarterly. And what was it previously?
Help me out here, Councillor Solda.
I think it was I'm not sure, but we're not meeting till November. Our next meeting is in November, and that's too long, Madam Mayor.
So it may be that we're not meeting as our terms of reference are saying right now, rather than needing to change the terms of reference. And Andrew, are you able to comment on this?
Yes, Madam Mayor. So previously we met 4 times per year, every quarter essentially. When the terms of reference was created, because we didn't previously have any, we went to twice per year. So.
Okay.
And Madam Mayor, that's just too long.
Okay, thanks for that. So let's definitely put that as an agenda item on our next agenda, and council can have discussion about it. I seemed to recall that it was quarterly we had changed to. Twice a year does seem infrequent for sure. So looking forward to that conversation at our next meeting.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay, any other items of new business? Seeing none, we'll move on to question period, which is an opportunity for members of the public to ask questions of council. Questions can be submitted by emailing anytime during our meeting or before council@portalberni.ca. Twyla, have we received any questions?
Yes, Madam Mayor, we have two questions. One from a Mr. Dunbar, and he's inquiring about the status of the Harbor Key Clock Story Tower refurbishing project. And then we have correspondence from Mr. Fraser and just looking for responses to questions he had submitted previously back in April. So this may lend itself to Councillor Solda. She had asked that we amend the agenda to have a conversation around questions submitted from the public. So perhaps Councillor Solda would like to expand on that at this point.
What I want to say is that our correspondence to get back to the public, it's taking too long. People shouldn't have to come back after 4 months. And I know there was COVID in between and that, but you know, like normally we answer the question as fast as we can. And it's normally after we do a meeting, there's a question and we come back with the answer. So I'm just think that we're waiting too long to answer, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Twyla, sorry, Tim, are you able to provide an update on the clock tower?
Madam Mayor, I just saw today a draft report on the clock tower. I think it'll be on your next agenda, next meeting agenda.
Okay, thank you. And Twyla, I'm not sure what question specifically Mr. Fraser is referring to. I do know that some of the questions that have not been answered, and maybe not Mr. Fraser specifically, but some have been regarding personnel matters. And the answer we have provided to other people and continue to provide is that personnel matters will not be discussed in public. So if they are regarding that, it is not that they are not being answered in a timely fashion, it's that they're not being answered because they are regarding people's right to privacy.
And if I could just expand on that, council will recall that we were looking, given the number of questions that we're receiving on a regular basis, and as we're doing these meetings by Zoom, it was suggested that by staff that we could come up with a Q&A document similar to what we use with the financial planning process. So we have been working on establishing that. And then to expand on Mayor Minion's comment about personnel matters, some of the questions we are getting are land related, and we have to reach out not only just to city staff to provide responses to questions, but also outside of the organization to get advice at, depending on the circumstances and what we're dealing with. So in some instances, we're not, purposely delaying, it's just more of a process. And we also have a workload and continuously shifting priorities that takes us away from populating that document, but we will put our eyes to it. And even if it's not complete, we could perhaps include it in the package, even though there may not be responses to all the questions that we've received.
Yeah, and I think that would be helpful. And yeah, I do think it's important to say that, when people do ask questions in public input and it is a question that is easily answered right away, then we certainly always try to, I always try to put someone on the spot to answer that question right away. It's not always possible, when some people do ask many questions, in one and can't necessarily be given a detailed response without staff having, time to ensure they're answering accurately. I think it's important that when we provide answers, we don't necessarily just provide them immediately, but we provide them correctly. And we want to make sure that we're giving out information that that we're not going to be criticized later for potentially, making an error in what we said. And as we know, we've seen that in the past when at times we have tried to just provide an answer right away for as much transparency as possible. And that answer, may not have been completely correct because somebody was trying to provide it immediately. And then we have ended up getting criticized for that attempt to provide an answer right away. So there has to be a balance. And I think everyone on council wants to make sure that we are providing answers and information to the public as quickly as possible. But we also need to make sure that we're finding that accuracy when as well. Councillor Corbeil.
Along the same lines, Madam Mayor, I think at the June 14th regular council meeting, Mr. Roberts wrote a letter regarding a tree that's in the boulevard in front of his house. And he disagreed, I guess, with what the assessment was of it. I walked by it and there's dead branches in that tree, no doubt. And I could imagine when it's raining, the branches would be quite low and cause a bit of a problem when walking underneath. And I think his concern was also branches breaking off and falling on his grandchildren or his truck. Has anything been done with that? Has there been more correspondence to Mr. Roberts, or do we know?
I'll ask Tim if he is aware, or if he might want to call on someone else.
Madam Mayor, I'm not aware. Mr. Smith may be aware, or Director of Parks Rec and Heritage, Director of Parks, Recreation and Heritage is not on this meeting. So we can bring that information to a subsequent meeting if you like, unless Scott can answer that now.
I'm not aware if our parks manager has reached out and specifically in this regard. I know there was an initial assessment done. And so I'm not sure whether they've reached back out. So that would be something that we can certainly ask our director to follow up with.
Thank you. I think it would be great to ask them to follow up, but to not ask them to change their assessment necessarily, but rather to have that conversation. I want to be cautious that council is not giving direction to remove a tree that city staff have deemed is a safe tree. But if there's a further conversation to be had about it with staff and member of the public, I think that's certainly important. Okay, any other questions received today?
Nothing further, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Then council, we will have a motion to close the meeting to the public as we are going into our in-camera meeting today after our regular meeting. It looks a little bit different to the public, but would somebody like to move that we go in camera? We'll actually just read out the motion as it's currently written. Councillor Paulson.
Just bottom of my head there. Sure. The council closes the meeting to the public pursuant to sections 91A, 91E, 91I, and 91L of the Community Charter for the purpose of considering personnel information about an identifiable individual who holds or is being considered for a position as an officer, employee, or agent of the municipality or another position appointed by the municipality. The acquisition, disposition, or expropriation of land or improvements, and where the council considers the disclosure could reasonably be expected to harm the interests of the municipality. The receipt of advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose, and discussions with municipal officers and employees respecting municipal objectives, measures, and progress reports.
Thank you. Is there a seconder?
Second.
Seconded by Councillor Poon. Any comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried. Thank you.